A very good Sunday to all of you, and I am Praveen Kishore. I am a sociology educator on Unacademy, right? And today I am going to discuss with you the art of writing a good sociology answer, right? So that will be my main purpose, objective in this particular uh, lecture, right? So today I'll be taking up a specific question, and that question is with regard to, is sociology a science, right? So today I'll be teaching you how to how to write good answers in sociology, right? Basically, a large number of people who appear in civil services examination have non-social science background, and majority of them are from science background, particularly engineering background, medical background, even commerce background students are there. So they find sometimes it is difficult to frame properly an answer and therefore write the answer properly. So this particular session, my live session, is mainly with this objective to ease you while framing the answer, right? So in the first, what I will try to say, I will try to take a general approach, and thereafter I will take up a specific question. And today's question is sociology a science? Is sociology a science, right? So this is today's question that I will be taking up, whether sociology is a science or not, right? But before that, we'll see the general approach, right? General approach. The first and foremost thing that is very important for writing a good answer is conceptual conceptual clarification. Conceptual clarification. So every question in UPSC main civil services exam of sociology is based on certain specific concepts, right? So unless and until you are very clear about that concept, that is, the concept is not clear to you, it would be difficult to proceed with your answer. So I will emphasize that first and foremost importance should be given to the conceptual clarification in understanding sociology as a discipline. So each topic should be studied not for the purpose of merely mugging up, but more emphasis should be on understanding the things what they want to convey, right? Second, we need a threshold of content. So content enrichment, that is, you must be having sufficient information on the topic, right, in its diversity, both positive as well as negative aspect of that term. And this enrich, unless until you have the information, it would be very difficult to write the good answer. Third is You must try to write your answer mainly in evolutionary sequence. Evolutionary sequence, right? That means what you will do, you will jot down all the relevant points in rough, then decide the sequence of writing of the points that meaning what should be written first, what should be written second, and in this endeavor the chronology of content, right, or information would be very helpful, very helpful, right? So we have to put the points in sequence, in order, what should come first, what should come later on, and this evolution means your answer should gradually unfold. Answer should gradually unfold, right? You can also take another approach, and that is you can also try to write from macro to micro description, right? That means you should first try to address the larger dimensions and then gradually move towards the micro dimensions, right? In case of 20 marker question, you need to have an introduction paragraph, and for introduction paragraph what you do, you should go a step back, right? Historical and social background always very useful in intro paragraph, right? Intro paragraph. So you just go to a step back, and once you are there, you put all your experience of history and society into that paragraph, and the para should end in such a way that it would naturally lead to you to write the main body of the answer, right? So intro, main body, and then you should naturally conclude, right? So this is sequence is very important. Then fourth, what you should do while writing the answer, once points to be mentioned is put into sequence, you should read 2 to 3 times the points so that the sequence is ingrained in your consciousness, in your consciousness, right? In simple word, that sequence should be in your memory, sequence in memory, right? Now that doesn't mean that you have to mug up the things. You read 2-3 times the order of the sequence. Naturally, automatically, it will be ingrained in your consciousness, in your mind, in your memory. And then once you start writing, then you will not generally miss any point, right? So once you are done with this, then start writing. Start writing, and then what you will find, if you follow this procedure, you will find answers, right? First, evolutionary sequence, right? Gradually unfolding, gradually unfolding, right? Flow of the answer, flow of the answer would be maintained, right? That means you will avoid frog jumping or random writing, right? You might have seen frog leaps directly. No, you should be gradually moving towards the description of your answer, right? And when you write in this evolutionary sequence, then conclusion would be naturally coming, right? So all these things will test in our writing, that is in the answer in sociology science, right? Right. So now we'll go to the question: is sociology science? Is sociology science? Right. This question, it may come, it has come in 10 marker short notes, right? And one of the biggest problem with the short notes writing, or writing the answer of 10 marker question, that we have to write in around 150 and 200 words. Majority of the students, they face a peculiar difficulty, and the peculiar difficulty is that, sir, we have so much of information and we have to put the information into hardly 150 to 200 words. Don't have time also in the examination hall. So how to do it? How to do it? And we'll learn about all these things, that how we'll do it. So as I said, that first we'll try to understand the concepts that is inherent in a question. Here we need to decipher, unfold two concepts. One is, what is sociology? This is the one. And second, what is science? Right? Unless we understand, unless we are clear about what is science, it would be difficult to explain whether sociology is a science or not. So first we'll see that evolution of the term science, right? When I'm saying this word evolution, that means science had has a meaning, but this meaning is not static, rather it has been dynamic, right? So nothing is static, so also the concept of or the term science and its meaning, right? So that means what? The term science had not been static, rather dynamic. With the growth of knowledge, the meaning of science had also undergone definite transformation. Definite transformation, right? That is, science has undergone definite transformation. Its meaning has changed, right? So we have to see what was the meaning when the term originated, then how the meaning developed. How the meaning developed, right? The term science is derived from the term scientia, meaning simply knowledge, right? That means the earliest meaning of the term science is growth of knowledge, and at this point of time there was no specific mention to methodology. No specific mention to methodology. That means at its earliest, science means knowledge acquired without any mention of what methodology should be adopted, right? So every sort of knowledge were described as the scientific knowledge or science, right? But later on, from the period of Renaissance, that is 14th century onward, and Enlightenment, 18th century, 17th century onward, right? The term science attained a specific reference, right? And this reference was in the context of this specific reference, and that is known as empiricism. Empiricism, right? That is means empiricism means knowledge gained through sensory experiences. Sensory experiences. That means what you are able to capture through your senses, right? So what is captured through senses should only be the basis of knowledge and what it is called as scientific knowledge. Scientific knowledge. And in this description of science, there was a presumption, right? In this description, inherent presumption was that empirical sensory experiences are objective truth, or what we generally call it as fact. What we generally call it as fact, right? Sensory, all of us know there are 5 organs, that is eye, ear, nose, tongue, and skin, right? So eye for vision, ear for hearing, nose that is smelling, tongue that is taste, and skin that is feeling, right? So what we see, that is vision, what we listen, that is hearing, what we smell, that is our nose, what we taste through our taste bud in tongue, and the feeling of hot, cold, heavy, etc. of our skin. That observations, such sensory experiences and observations are only the foundational stone, or should only be the foundational stone for acquisition of knowledge, right? And naturally in this, what we presume, that what we experience through our senses is absolute truth, is an objective truth. Initially this method was applied in the study of the subject matter of, or in the study of the object of nature, right? In this, the first was dead objects, dead objects, and mainly we utilize this in the discipline of astronomy and physics, right? Now, generally, when we say astronomy and physics, they are not method, they are merely discipline. And discipline means what? A discipline needs two things to clarify. First, what is the subject matter of a study? And then, for a discipline to be acknowledged, it has to speak clearly about the methodological approach. The methodological approach. That is, what methodology one is going to apply. What methodology one is going to apply in the study, right? And basically, you will see all early scientists, they either talked about the heavenly bodies and the forces of nature. Forces of nature, mechanical, electrical, magnetic, right? Gravitational, etc. So, in these disciplines, while studying these subject matters, this empirical method was applied. Empirical method was applied, right? And it was applied successfully. It was applied successfully because it is this application of this method that helped us develop application of empirical method in the study of objects of nature, gave us insight of their character, which helped us improve productivity, and control nature. In short, what we'll say, that application of this method led to development of physics, and this development of physics led us to innovate new technology, and this new technology helped us improve our efficiency, and therefore moving from a status of a position of crisis of material things to prosperity or plenty of material things. In simple word, empirical method when applied in the study of natural objects and forces. We say it astronomy, physics, and chemistry. It led to innovation of technology that increased our productivity, which in turn resolved material crisis and provided better control over forces of nature, over forces of nature, right? That means we were more in control of planning our life. We were able to deal with the crisis of the material things that we required to survive, right? We also increased the productivity of food products, etc. And all these things, in a way, revolutionized the human life. Or, in simple, what we said, it helped in raising the standard of living. Standard of living means knowledge becomes relevant only when it has the capacity to alter our life and help achieve the desired goal, right? And in this discipline, this methodology was very successful. So science was described as a method which had three components. First is known as empirical observation. Empirical observation. Second is experimentation. And third is verification. Third is verification. So science was described as a method, right? And this method was applied in the analysis of the objects of nature, and the method consisted of three stages: empirical observation, experimentation, that is exposing an object to a variable and observing its impact, and then repeating the experiment, and on repeated attempt, if the conclusion was same, if the result was same, then the law was said to be verified, right? So generally what you will see, that any experiment proceeded with hypothesis formulation. Based on your current knowledge, hypotheses were framed, formulated, and then to prove that hypothesis, experiment were conducted, and this experiment was conducted with an intention to verify the hypothesis. And if on repeated experiment the conclusion was similar, then the hypothesis was said to be stood verified, and that became, this hypothesis at that time became law, or what we know as theory, right? Now this definitely helped a lot in development of what we generally know as natural science, right? Natural science, right? So this method of inductivism, verificationism, had fruitful outcome in the material dimension of human life. Material dimension of human life, right? And this method, so at this point of time, only this method was described as scientific. So where we have come? We have come to simple accumulation of knowledge to what is the meaning? Science. Meaning changed from simple accumulation of knowledge to accumulation of knowledge using empirical method of observation, experimentation, and verification, right? Which later on this method was described as inductivism or inductive method, inductivist method, right? So science became synonymous to inductivist method. Science became synonymous to inductivist method, right? And this was mainly used in the study of the material dimensions of the society, the object of nature, the object of nature, right? Whenever whenever there is progress in a discipline, it inspires the intellectuals of other discipline too, other discipline too. Or when we say other discipline, that is subject matter, right? And intellectuals, what they do, they try to utilize utilize the method, the method in the study of the subject matter of their interest to resolve crisis faced, if any, if any. So you get inspired, like when somebody is qualifies for civil services, you also get inspired, you get motivated, right? And then you approach him, you ask him his methodological approach, how he strategizes preparation, when did he start thinking about it, what methodology is applied, where did he attend the classes, etc., etc. And then you start, if it has impact on you, if it is influence on you, you start following this methodology. It is this influence or inspiration, right? Inspired by and influenced by this success, mainly of physics, thinkers like Claude Henry Saint sorry Simon, sorry, I'm extremely sorry, Claude Henry Saint Simon and Auguste Comte, both French intellectuals, conceived of the discipline of sociology utilizing the inductivist method. And here, birth of positivism, birth of positivism. Positivism as an ideology was born along with the birth of the discipline of sociology. And when you say what is sociology, that means study of society, and society meaning group, collectivity. Definitely, what are the subject matter of study of society that we read from detailed analysis of Auguste Comte, Herbert Spencer, Emile Durkheim, then further Max Weber, right? But the early three, that is Auguste Comte, Herbert Spencer, and Emile Durkheim, are known as positivist, and the method applied by them is known as positive method, and this positive method was inductivist method. So positivism was considered as only scientific method appropriate for the study of society and arrive at generalization or general laws. Means the way we have laws in physics and chemistry and astronomy, general law, abstract law, In the same way, we can also discover the laws of society. And presumption was society follows a pattern of both functioning and change, right? And inductivist method can be successfully applied to unfold the social reality, right? So this functioning and change both follow a pattern, and that pattern can be discovered. And in this methodology, like physics, it emphasized on empirical observation, experimentation, and verification, right? For almost 50 years, from 1838 to end of 19th century, that is, in the writings of Comte, Spencer, and Comte, Spencer, and Emile Durkheim, this method was described as only alternative to provide scientific status to discipline of sociology, right? And definitely this was based on certain assumptions that are called as postulates of positivism, right? So this was based on presumption. And what was the presumption? Presumptions, fundamental premise, fundamental premise, the foundational stone of the building blocks, and that is also known as postulates of positivism, means taken for granted assumptions. And these are that human being, human being, the subject matter of study of sociology is same as other objects of nature, right? So focused on empirical observation, and that based on these empirical observation arriving at conclusion, that is law, right? You'll see that more appropriately in social fact approach of Emile Durkheim. But by the end of 19th century, there was renewal of interest in Kantian idealism, right? Kant, he had written a book called Critic of Pure Reason. Critic of Pure Reason in 1757, and he was the most popular philosopher of 18th century. He was the most popular philosopher of 18th century. So this Kantian idealism, which was challenged by empiricist philosophy of Locke, David Locke, Francis Bacon, right? David Locke, Francis Bacon, etc. Right? So there was a challenge, but because of that challenge, it lost its popularity, and empiricist philosophy gained momentum, gained popularity, right? But there was a renewed interest in the writings of in this person, Kantian idealism, and this renewed interest is in the work of Rickert, Windelband, and Max Weber. And this is called as the renewed Kantian ideology is known as neo-idealism. Neo-idealism, right? So Kantian idealism is known as old or classical idealism, and this idealism is known as neo-idealism. There is certain distinction between the two, but right now this is not the time where we can discuss here neo-idealism. Otherwise, it will unnecessarily be extended for very long hours. So we'll presume that idealism and neo-idealism is same, and the major concern of neo-idealism is human being possesses subjective consciousness. Subjective consciousness, right? Which is internal, cannot be captured truly by sensory experiences or empirical method. Empirical method, right? So what they did, they questioned they questioned the fundamental premise of positivism, that human being is different from the other objects of nature, right? This ideology questioned the fundamental premise of positivism that human being, that subject matter or human being is same as other objects of nature, right? And what they said, that human being possesses subjective consciousness, which is also described as divine idea. Means our consciousness, our motive is not product of any external factor. Rather, it is internal, original, or if you use the Hindu mythology, what it says, it is derived from the vacuum. You really don't know the exact reason of your thinking. You simply think in that way. And every person has different thinking. So this is called subjective consciousness. You will find in Weber's theory what he says. Human behavior is definitely affected by external factors, but it possesses subjective consciousness too. It is a thinking being, right? Now here there is a very important aspect, and the important aspect is that objects of nature are believed not to have consciousness, right? Objects of nature are believed not to have consciousness, whereas human being possesses consciousness. Therefore, the appropriateness of the positive method and its utility gets questioned, right? Since the nature of subject matter of sociology and objects of nature were considered different, there emerged a question of adequacy of inductivist positive method in unfolding the reality of human behavior and society, right? Human behavior and society, right? So when you look at the positive method, right, it uses quantitative method of data collection, right? This was considered as inadequate, and therefore need of a different method, and that is qualitative method or interpretative method, right? Now here we need to understand that what is the purpose of science. The purpose of science is to reach to the reality. And if one is ignoring a integral character of human behavior, the subjective consciousness, then by using that method, one cannot reach to the reality, and therefore that method should not be called as scientific. Right? I'm writing here. The purpose of science from beginning has been to reach to know, unfold reality. If subjective consciousness is integral to human nature, then positivism for sure would not be successful in reaching to social reality, to social reality, right? So positive method, if you apply only, it forfeits the very purpose of science to discover the reality of the human society, and therefore it should not be called as scientific. But here we will not call positive method as unscientific. What we'll say, and this is what Weber had said, that positivism does contribute in discovering the pattern of society, if any, but at the same time it fails to discover the uniqueness of social phenomena, right? Now later on you can read Paul Feyerabend. He says that one method is successful only in discovering a few dimensions of reality, not all dimensions of reality. Paul Feyerabend. Paul Feyerabend calls that no method is complete. Each method is capable of discovering only a few dimensions of reality. So, limiting to it would hamper the purpose of science itself, right? That means we should be open to new methods and its fruitfulness can be evaluated only in the consequence, right? So because of all these problems, non-positive method emerged, or non-positivism. And this non-positivism was also claimed as scientific. Also claimed as scientific. We'll see how. The first thing is that Weber said external factors do affect human behavior, but ultimately it is the subjective consciousness that defines the situation. That defines the situation. It is the subjective consciousness that defines the situation, and as we define the situation, we take action. So we need to consider this subjective consciousness, and that's why he says sociology is an interpretative discipline. Is an interpretative discipline, right? I know you might be developing some uneasiness because we have to write only 150 words and I have discussed so much things. So don't worry, I will be repeating, I will be writing those things in 200 words, right? First, what I said, without understanding the concept involved and without the content enrichment, one cannot write a good answer, right? Framing of an answer is relevant only when you have sufficient data to frame the appropriate answer, right? In the meantime, positivism was criticized for killing the critical spirit of science by philosopher of science Karl Popper. Philosopher of science Karl Popper, right? How positivism kills the critical spirit of science. Sorry. Right. So, philosopher of science Karl Popper, what he said, positivism, or what we had said, inductivism, emphasizes on verification, right? And emphasis on verification. If you are coming to conclusion same and same time again and again, then you start taking things for granted, right? So, repeated experiment with same conclusion leads us to take things for granted, for granted, right? And you consider it to be absolutely true and therefore universal truth, right? He says this is wrong because this is killing your critical spirit. And science purpose is what? Growth of knowledge. And knowledge would stop growing if you do not have a critical approach to analysis towards anything. So he said positivism kills the critical spirit. So he suggested what is known as falsificationism. That means sociologists, sociologists or social scientists should try to falsify existing theories, existing theories by changing the conditions of experiment, the conditions of experiment and the perspective of analysis, the angle from which you are analyzing the things, perspective of analysis, right? So now here you see what he claims, that falsificationism is truly scientific, and the method that he suggests is qualitative and hypothetico deductive method. Hypothetico deductive method. Hypothetico deductive method. Right? That means one should go for qualitative analysis. One should go to, they should look for the new situation in which the existing theory can be proved to be wrong. And this way it will be maintaining the critical spirit, will be looking at the things critically, and that will help increase our horizon of understanding of the things. And this way, he says, intention to falsify is scientific spirit. Right? Now you see that earlier verificationism was called as scientific. Now falsificationism is called as scientific. Right? Now we come to a third person, that is, his name is T.S. Kuhn. T.S. Kuhn. T. Thomas S. Kuhn, who says every discipline in its early stage, every discipline in its early stage is every discipline in its early stage is in trial and error phase. In this stage, rule of thumb is the rule of analysis, and this he calls as pre-paradigmatic stage. Pre-paradigmatic stage. So he is coining a term called paradigm. Paradigm means set of principles and assumptions. Set of principles and assumptions, right? We can think about the model, right? When you do not have any fixed principle of analysis, rather you are using trial and error. So that stage is not science. That stage is not science, right? Once a discipline attains a paradigm, once a discipline attains a paradigm, it is scientific. It is scientific, right? It is scientific, or it has attained the status of science. So physics was also in pre-paradigmatic stage, astronomy was also in pre-paradigmatic stage, biology was also in pre-paradigmatic stage. So all disciplines in their early phase were into pre-paradigmatic stage. Every discipline in its early phase doesn't have a fixed principle of analysis. There is no consistency in analysis. The trial and error is applied, rule of thumb is applied to discover the reality. So at that stage, it is not called as science. Once a discipline attains a paradigm, then it is called scientific. And then T.S. Kuhn had certain stake. He says, first to attain paradigm was astronomy, followed by physics, chemistry, and biology, right? None of the disciplines studying human behavior has attained paradigm, has attained paradigm, right? That means none of the disciplines has attained paradigm which deals with the human behavior, social phenomenon, right? He said economics is only showing some sign of attaining paradigm, attaining paradigm. That means Kuhn is clear that sociology has not attained the status of science. So for Kuhn, sociology is not science. Now let us see what are the things that we have discussed. First is a method can be called as scientific, and the method that discovers or capable of discovering reality. Second, we need to see the spirit of the method, right? So if you see the spirit of the method, then falsificationism, falsificationism is scientific, right? Then we see paradigm, whether a discipline has attained paradigm or not, then we can call as scientific, right? That means what? When you are talking or we are trying to prove whether something is science or not, you need to lay down parameters of science first. For example, suppose somebody asks you, are you successful? Are you successful? Now, naturally, you can't answer this question because first you have to ask, what do you mean by success? What is the criteria of success? What are the parameters of success? Whether taking care of your ailing parents is the parameter of success, whether achieving economically is the parameter of success, whether maintaining the unity of your family is parameter of success, or getting prestige in the society is the parameter of success. So we have to lay down the parameter of success because nothing is absolute in this world, right? So whether a discipline is scientific or not, it can be evaluated only when we lay down the parameters. When we lay down the parameters, and based on those parameters, we can argue whether a discipline is scientific or not, right? So here now we start writing the answer. We'll use the second slide. Next slide. Science sorry okay, science is not a static concept. With the progress of human society, human beings, or human society, and with the progress of human society, the idea of science has also changed. Yes. With the progress of human society and growing area of interest. Growing area of interest. Right? The idea of Science had changed, right? From mere accumulation of knowledge to acquisition of knowledge through empirical method to maintaining critical spirit has been the parameters of science. Parameter of science, right? At the inception of the discipline of sociology, only use of inductivist method was recommended for it to attain scientific status. Scientific status, right? Initial sociologists like A. Count, Herbert Spencer, and Emile Durkheim belonged to this school. These sociologists, also called positivists, emphasized on empirical method, the quantitative method of data collection and analysis as only scientific, right? Right. Then we'll jump directly to the neo idealist. But with the emergence of neo idealist perspective, in the writings of Weber, which acknowledged subjective consciousness as integral to human nature, the adequacy of quantitative method emphasis on external observation was questioned. These non-positivists, these non-positivists did not reject completely the contribution of quantitative method, but argued of its insufficiency in unfolding social reality. They advised interpretative method, qualitative method for unfolding the undiscovered dimension of social reality, right? Intellectuals like Karl Popper advised falsificationism as it maintains, in short notes you have to exclude many things because you have limitation of word. It maintains critical spirit of science. Later on, T.S. Kuhn came with the argument that any discipline that possesses paradigm is science. Though Kuhn denies sociology possessing a paradigm, sociologists acknowledge both positivism and non-positivism as two paradigms. Hence, sociology is no doubt is no doubt science, but is different from natural science, requiring both quantitative and qualitative paradigm to unearth the social reality completely. That's why it is a social science, right? So this way, now you can see I might have exceeded a few limits because I have to clarify you also, but we have not exceeded much, right? Uh, we have done uh, considerably well, and we have tried to finish this within the 200 words, right? So now you see that unless until you have conceptual clarification, unless you have this much of extensive knowledge, you can't frame a good answer. So for framing good answer, you need to do this, and then you need to have an act of learn the skill of omission and commission. What are to be omitted, what are to be kept, etc., etc. So these things you will have to learn, right? I hope I have given sufficient idea to approach any answer, and particularly this question: is sociology a science? You are in a position to describe that yes, no doubt sociology is a science which requires both quantitative and qualitative paradigm to unearth the social reality. Thank you for today, and I'll take your leave now, right? Thank you.